that David served the purpose of the Lord in his own generation. Then he died according to the will of God, and his body decayed. In verse 37, he says that Jesus Christ, however, though crucified, buried according to scriptures, he did not see decay, but he rose from the dead. So that is the proper hermeneutical understanding of the scripture, that it is speaking about the resurrection of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. However, the profundity of verse 36 should never be left amiss. David served the purpose of God in his own generation. And I want to say, speaking to educators and practitioners such as you are, that you have the ability not just to serve the purpose of God in your generation, but for generations to come. Therefore, you must live your life on purpose. Unlike many of us, and well, let me not go there, but unlike many people, you cannot give an excuse to God when that day comes that God, for a second, I lapsed where purpose was concerned. Why is this so essential? Miles Monroe, the late Dr. Miles Monroe says this, that design determines purpose. Therefore, if I take up a calligraphy pen and I take up a ballpoint pen, and I proceed to use a calligraphy pen, which is very expensive to take notes in class, I'll be a man of folly, because it was designed a particular way, not for taking notes as its purpose. However, a ballpoint pen was designed, they are both pens, but they were designed differently, therefore their purpose must be different. And purpose determines function. So the purpose of these things, and I want to say appropriate function, because where there is misappropriation of function, there is abuse or misuse. And oftentimes we see humankind being abused or being misused because there is a misappropriation of purpose, therefore inappropriate function ensues. So we must live on purpose. And I've contemplated this and say, as we pursue our dreams, because every person wants to pursue their dream, but oftentimes there are some crucial elements or phases or steps that we try to jump over and not contemplate en route to our dreams. So our dreams must be fueled by our vision. And Habakkuk 2 verse 2 says, write the vision down plain on tablets and make them known. And give the person who runs these visions, and that person will read them, because the vision is for a kairos moment, and upon the time, the vision will not lie. The scripture also says, without a vision, the people, I'm in church. So it means that if I am pursuing my dreams and I have visions for this pursuit, then I will remain on point. Because my vision is, how do I plan this, my future, my route to my dreams? How do I plan these using imagination and using creativity? And in Jamaican parlance, we say that one cook a full basket, and every mickle make a muckle. So you definitely are stretched to use your imagination in our culture as we pursue our dreams. How does my dream work itself out in the day-to-day runnings and millings, the joys and achievements of life? How do I appropriate my vision to my dream? And not getting away from the word purpose, how do I use that thing for which I was created to fuel my vision, the day-to-day runnings of life en route to my dream? So it works on the way up, but it also works on the way down. Because I guarantee you, and as we have seen many a times with the legal lottery, not the lottery scam that my city is famous for, but the legal lottery, many are persons who have won this because they didn't have a vision for what they wanted, them pauperize in no time. Amen. Because poverty is a state of mind, not a state of fiscal earnings. And many of us will achieve our dreams and still feel unfulfilled, still feel miserable, because I'd want to say that the alleviation of misery is within the vision and purpose for which we were created, not in the achievement of the dreams that we have. So when you have a vision, your vision works your dream when you get there. When you get that $10 million that you're searching for, your vision now works that dream in the day-to-day realities of life. And because you would have fueled your vision with purpose, you will reach a sense of accomplishment, a sense of prosperity. And for me, prosperity is to be given the fullness of your life. So Jesus Christ says this: the person who pursues life, it will constantly fly or flee away from them. They will lose it. But a person who hands over his or her life to him, who in essence loses his life willingly, will find it. When you use your purpose to fuel your vision to fuel your dream, I guarantee you that you will find fulfillment because you would have lived your life on purpose. As practitioners of education, you must do this. I stand here as a little boy from Glendevon, inner city, notorious city. Big on drugs, big on lottery scam, big on worklessness. Pardon my, sorry. But I stand as someone who came under, for me, and no disrespect to my Montegonan teachers, but to one of the most excellent practitioner of education in this city, Mrs. Perrier. Room 14, she would not let me go. She would not let me go. I wasn't the brightest, so I know her home oh too well. My parents didn't have the lunch money to send me to school, worse the lunch money for me to do extra lessons. But the 76 of us in her class had to sit, yes, had to sit extra lessons. So school started for us at 8 and ended at 4. Summer class was not an option. I remember being sick one day. My mother went to tell her, sorry, but Robert can't come to school. And in her unteacher-like moment, she said, go for me picnic here, come give me. Because she was in a holistic practice. And she brought my seat beside her desk, and she had a little magic basket. And she nursed me back to health. But she ensured that in pursuit of her dream, her purpose mattered. And when we only had 2 high schools in Montego Bay, Cornwall College and Herbert Morrison, I put them down with no hope of going there. And I was awarded a place at Cornwall College. David lived for God's purpose to his own generation. But you are here to affect generations beyond your own. Live your life on purpose.
Please applaud better than that. And I'm just saying, wow, wow, awesome. A teacher affects eternity. He can never tell where his influence stops. So let us continue, colleagues, to live a purpose-driven life. And let us be visionaries and don't give up on anyone. This was a testimony. Minister Robert Green from the Faith Temple Assemblies of God, keynote speaker Dr. Leith Dunn, senior lecturer, head of the Institute of Gender and Development Studies at the University of the West Indies, Dr. Garth Anderson, president of the Jamaica Teachers Association, and Mrs. Anderson, Mr. Owen Speed, president-elect of the JTA, Mrs. Georgia War Richards, Mr. Owen Speed, president-elect of the JTA, and Mrs. Speed just waved a hand. Can the spouses just wave a hand? Mrs. Anderson is at the back with little baby Anderson. Mrs. Georgia War Richards, immediate past president. Mr. Byron Farkis, Dr. Grace McLean, permanent secretary acting. Mr. Byron Farkison, Secretary General of the JTA. Mr. Howard Isaacs, Dean, Acting Dean of the Teachers Colleges of Jamaica. Just raise a hand where you are. Mr. Ryan Parks, Chief Business Banking, Jamaica National Bank. I understand that Mrs. Booth Matthews is not here yet. Dr. Margaret Chin, Assistant Secretary General, Professional Services, JTA, and also Chairman of the Programs Committee. Mr. Cumberbatch, Registrar, CXC, and all our participants without whom the conference would not be able to happen. To the JTA staff members, the members of the media fraternity, exhibitors, colleagues, all, good morning. Welcome to the Jamaica Teachers Association's Education Conference on Gender in Education, which is being held at the Hilton Rose Hall, Montego Bay from April 23 to 25. The theme of the conference is Gender and the Teaching Profession, Implications for Teaching and Learning. The Sustainable Development Goals 4 and 5 are important points of reference for this timely conference. Colleagues, please remember to mute your phones. We are streaming live from jta.org or YouTube at Jamaica Teachers Association or Facebook at Jamaica Teachers. So we are on 3 social media platforms, and we know what that means. We applaud the professionals present from the early childhood to the tertiary sector. Commendations also to our partners in education who have been with us over the years, and to our new partners who are collaborating with us. And you have heard that the Teachers College of Jamaica, they are partnering with us this year, Jamaica National Bank, we have Walden University, and we have so many other sponsors who have come on board. The Jamaica Live, the JTA Live session that we'll have on the final day, the t-shirts have been sponsored by Tip Friendly Society. The education sector will be much better off because of this prudent investment that you have made to be here at this conference. And I cannot recall hearing of a conference of this kind being put on by the education sector, so let's applaud ourselves. This conference aims to bring together teachers, education practitioners, researchers, academics, students, and policymakers to, among other things, to address gender issues in the teaching profession. It will also provide an opportunity for delegates to share their knowledge and experience from different perspectives. Special thanks to our president, Dr. Garth Anderson, for conceptualizing the idea of a conference to focus on gender in education, and special thanks to the various subcommittees who have come together to put together this conference. Let us all do our parts, colleagues, to ensure that the conference is successful, and so as we reflect on the different perspectives, the best practices, recommendations, the ideas, all the ideas locally and globally, let us collectively make meaningful recommendations, have a wonderful JTA experience as we go through this conference. And I'm sure you have many questions to ask, and you are thinking of many things. And if the discussions that we had when we were having the training, if those are anything to go by, we know that there are going to be more questions than possibly answers. And so, colleagues, those are my words of welcome. And I now invite our Secretary General, Mr. Byron Farquharson, to come and bring greetings. Please make him feel welcome.
Our Master of Ceremonies, Dr. Charmin Goodin-Monteith, Minister Robert Green, our keynote speaker, Dr. Leith Dunn, our President, Dr. Garth Anderson, President-elect, Mr. Owen Speed, immediate past President, Mrs. Georgia War Richards, Dr. Grace McLean, Permanent Secretary, Acting, Mr. Howard Isaacs, Dean, Acting, Teachers Colleges of Jamaica, Mr. Ryan Parks, Chief Business Banking, Jane Bank, Mrs. Cadian Bood Matthews, though not here, acknowledge her. Dr. Margaret Chin, Assistant Secretary General, Professional Services, JTA. To all our members of staff, to your wonderful participants, exhibitors, and members of the media. The Jamaica Teachers Association, who is a critical and proactive stakeholder in the education sector, considers it sufficiently important to stage on an annual basis an education conference, most times focusing on issues that are topical and critical to the system, and seek through dialogue and various forms of consultation to change and influence the education landscape. This year is not just another pilgrimage. It is a serious pursuit to provide, I think, thoughts and ideas, hopefully to provide some answers, maybe more questions, yes, but some answers as we grapple with gender and the teaching profession. We are constantly confronted by the statement by former US President Jefferson when he stated that there's nothing more unequal than to treat an equal equally. This is what we believe is one of the challenges we face as a nation, as we become very concerned about the underachievement of our boys and men. And despite the many spots of excellence, we are still concerned. We are worried that our girls and ladies will not be able to find suitable male partners for husbands and fathers. And the society cry out for men with backbones rather than merely wishbones. The society is crying out for greater responsible behavior by our males. But colleagues, it's not just about the males. We are concerned about the total development of our society. And therefore, we note that he who rocks the cradle rules the world. And therefore, the role of our female girls and women is equally important. The socialization of our children, and clearly our future men and women, much of it rests squarely in the hands of our mothers. I'm no expert on gender studies. In fact, we have an expert here. But I know that for a balanced and sustainable development within the society, we need both the male and the female to be operating at their maximum. And therefore, we must understand and accept that all of us need to contribute meaningfully to society's development. I wish to acknowledge, and Dr. Charmaine did already, but I just want to underscore the partnerships that were forged with our sponsors. And we want to thank Jamaica National for coming on board. And I ask you to applaud them. For Teachers Colleges of Jamaica, and I want you to applaud them. For Walden University. We also want to thank our exhibitors and you, our valued participants, for coming out, taking time out, and we hope that the next couple of days that we spend together will be very productive, very rewarding, will perhaps add further light or enlightenment to the gender issues that we struggle with. We must understand that teaching and learning is for all of us. I repeat, the growth, the purpose, and the vision of our country and all of us as players whether a male or female, is dependent on how best we understand that we have a role to play. We look forward to a wonderful conference, and we hope that the discourse will be at such a level that you're going to say, wow, it was good to be here. Thank you very much.
Come on, you can do better than that. Thank you, Secretary General. I'd also like to welcome the other presenters who are here. Can you raise your hand if you're a presenter? Okay, welcome, Mr. Carr from PIOJ. Welcome to our rapporteurs and the members of the PAC who are busy seating, doing the ushering. Special welcome to you. We'd like to now invite our permanent secretary, Dr. Grace McLean, from the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, and she never misses an opportunity to be with us. Please make her feel welcome.
Thank you very much, our moderator, Dr. Charmaine Gooden Monteith, and congratulations, Dr. Monteith, on your recently published book. Pastor Green, I have to confess, sir, I have never listened to a Rasta pastor. But we were blessed this morning. Our esteemed President, Dr. Garth Anderson, Mr. Owen Speed, our President-elect, Mrs. Georgia War Richards, our immediate past President, Mr. Byron Farquharson, our Secretary General, Mr. Howard Isaacs, Dean, Acting, Teachers Colleges of Jamaica, Mr. Ryan Parks from Jamaica National, and of course, Dr. Margaret Chin, who I believe is one of the key organizers for today's activities. Our esteemed guest speaker, Dr. Dunn. What better person could we have invited for today's and for the rest of the week discourse? Other presenters, I see Mr. Stephen Carr, our colleague, and of course my other colleague from another island, Mr. Cumberbatch, and my representatives from the National College for Educational Leadership. Other distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am delighted to be here this morning for many reasons. I am delighted because I get the opportunity immediately after a long period of intense work, dedication, and commitment to express sincere thanks and appreciation to your President and yourselves for the excellent work you have done in ensuring that we completed all three components of the primary exit profile successfully. I'm not getting a big round of applause, but that's okay. The appreciation is for you. Thank you for doing what you would have done. Thank you for bringing the matters to the floor for discussion. And thank you very much for the partnership of agreement through your President that would have allowed us to have come this far. On my way here this morning, I stopped with a room filled with teachers such as yourselves, just to say thanks to them for coming out today for the actual marking of the performance task paper, which is currently going on as we speak. And again, I really feel quite blessed, and I'm really appreciative on behalf of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information for the continued dedication and commitment of our teachers in Jamaica. So a bigger round of applause for yourselves. So this morning, I am here representing our Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, the Honorable Carl Samudo, who unfortunately could not be here this morning because yesterday was Easter Monday, so there was no cabinet, and so cabinet is actually meeting this morning. And he also has Parliament this afternoon. So he has asked me to convey his sincere regret, but also to express sincere appreciation for the work that you have continued to do, and to indicate that he will be meeting with the leadership of the Jamaica Teachers Association very soon, and after that meeting, this will be followed with meetings island-wide with our principals, schools, administrators, and other representatives so that he can get an opportunity to share with you the vision and the direction that would have been given to him as he supports the Ministry of Education, Youth, and Information at this time. So let me now turn my attention to gender. Your theme, Gender and the Teaching Profession, Implications for Teaching and Learning, puts into sharp focus a growing recognition of the importance of addressing gender as a social construct and its impact on education. The fact is, ladies and gentlemen, perceptions of gender roles have implications for how we treat with and address attitudes, responsibilities, and behavior patterns of boys and girls, men and women in our society. We know from our history that education has the potential of initiating social change in a variety of areas, and gender relations would be no exception. Over the past 3 decades, we know that there has been increasing concerns about the place and traditional role of women in the home, the workplace, and wider society. And I will be the first to declare that my most important profession is to be a mother and a housewife. I don't have any applause for that, Charmaine. It says something. But even if I'm the lone voice in the wilderness, I believe that is my #1 purpose on this earth. So I'm stepping into my purpose, Pastor. Even more recently, there has been new focus on the underperformance of boys in certain subject areas and the resultant academic and sociological discourse over whether the education system is underserving our boys. Ladies and gentlemen, it is actually interesting because when I go to other parts of the world, especially interfacing with countries within the Indian Ocean and in Africa, we find that they have a problem with girls. And so it is amazing when we discuss and we speak about what we have done in Jamaica, they seem not to understand why boys are not their challenge. And so depending on the perspective from which we are looking at this, it can mean different things to different countries. Certainly, there have been specific efforts to focus attention on gender disparities in education. There is now, however, an emerging need to reflect and focus in a proactive manner on transforming attitudes, belief, and behavior patterns. In Jamaica, we have many different ways to almost stereotype what the male can do from the female, and the perception or even the general discussion is usually prefaced by our general perception of whether that is acceptable for a male or a female. And so the adjectives that are used for boys and girls, men and women, sometimes are really very different. Diversity in men and women, how we look at what men are able to do as against women. Gender representation of occupations. So many times, persons will come into an office and they will see a woman and they will say, I expected a man to have been in this position. The roles that we are assigned, do we continue to have our boys sweeping up the yard and assisting the father with the car while the girl stays inside to help in the kitchen and to make the bed and to do the household chores? General values, morals, and principles as it relates to men and women, what men can do and get away, but women dare not do and get away. Importantly, how do we take decisions regarding education of our children, regarding money and how it is spent, and actually other areas relating to the development of our children? So as we are reflecting for the next couple of days on gender, it should be noted that the ministry over the years, through the Jamaica Teaching Council and the Commonwealth Secretariat, we have done significant work as it relates to highlighting the differences between boys and girls and really what we need to do to ensure that we focus and support both areas. The USAID, a couple of years ago, actually developed a manual which speaks to gender. Now, this manual did not skew to males or skew to females. It spoke specifically as to the approaches that we can use as it relates to ensuring that we provide the opportunities for our boys and our girls to maximize their potential. Our data, Mr. Cumberbatch, has shown that our girls continue to outperform our boys. Data has also shown, however, that when our boys are gainfully engaged in activities that they become intimately involved in doing, practical activities, then the results are far much better. One of your own past presidents, Professor Errol Miller, has an extensive body of work which points to specific social constructs and historical factors that may have led to the reasons we look at girls differently in relation to boys. I believe, however, ladies and gentlemen, with all the research that would have been conducted, Dr. Dunn herself would have done a significant body of work at the University of the West Indies. We are now at a place where we can seriously look at gender and with the data available and take decisions as to how we can ensure equal opportunities for all our children. They are all our babies, and they are all very important as we prepare them for life. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information will continue to work through the Jamaica Teaching Council, the National College for Educational Leadership, and through our regional network to ensure that we are continuously providing the support that is required for our children. Our mission is to encourage and help educators to continue to explore innovative teaching approaches that will result in making all our boys and our girls productive in the workplace and wider society. And I will be the first to declare that my most important profession is to be a mother and a housewife. Teachers Association for once again coming up with an area that as educators we need to look at, and I am looking forward to the decisions that will be made or will be suggested out of this conference, where the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information can take these, reflect on our policies, and make changes as it would be necessary for us to be able to continue to impact the lives of our children. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you all a very successful conference.
I'm sure you can applaud our former chief and our acting PS better than that. Thank you so much, Dr. McLean, for those insights, and I'm sure they'll be a part of the conversation as we continue over the next 3 days. And now invite Mr. Howard Isaacs, Acting Dean, Teachers Colleges of Jamaica, to come and bring greetings. Please make him feel welcome.
Chairman of this morning's function, Dr. Charmaine Gooden-Monteith, Minister Robert Green, Faith Temple Assemblies of God, our keynote speaker, Dr. Leith Dunn, Senior Lecturer at the University, Head of Institute of Gender and Developmental Studies, Dr. Garth Anderson, President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Mr. Owen Speed, President-elect, Mrs. Georgia War Richards, immediate past President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Dr. Grace McLean, Permanent Secretary, Acting of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, Mr. Byron Farquharson, our Secretary General and past President of the JTA, Mr. Ryan Parks, Chief Business Banking Officer, Jamaica National, Mrs. Cadian Booth Matthews, Manager for Strategic Alliances, Walden University, Dr. Margaret Chin, Assistant Secretary General, Professional Services, JTA, and other officers of the JTA, my colleagues, all JTA staff members, my colleagues from across the Caribbean that are here, past presidents that are here also, exhibitors, members of the media, good morning. I bring you greetings on behalf of the Jamaica Teachers Colleges of Jamaica. You see, I have a challenge because I remember maybe a year or two ago, I was standing right here. So when I looked in the audience, I went back there, Mr. President. Please understand. Okay, please understand. I bring you greetings on behalf of the Teachers Colleges of Jamaica. TCJ is quite pleased to be collaborating with the JTA on the staging of its annual education conference. The theme, Gender and Teaching Profession, Implications for Teaching and Learning, is a timely topic as strengthening the thinking and culture for education system through research is critical towards us moving forward in the 21st century. Our mission as the Teachers Colleges of Jamaica states that the Teachers Colleges of Jamaica will ensure quality education underpinned by research, technological innovations, inclusive of pedagogical and appropriate content knowledge in a stimulating and nurturing teaching and learning environment, end of quote. It is therefore imperative that we remain relevant as tertiary educational institutions and seek to use research to drive and guide educational change for an improved society. Our participation in this conference represents another of our continued effort as colleges to partner with our stakeholders as we seek to impact lives and initiate change. It is therefore more than a pleasure and an honor for us to be here today. And as you participate in the various activities for the next 2 or 3 days, you will realize, colleagues, that a significant percentage of the presenters who are here today and into tomorrow and into Thursday will be representatives of the Teachers Colleges of Jamaica. We are focusing on driving the change in Jamaica. And we want you to recognize that the 8 colleges that make up the Teachers Colleges of Jamaica, we are focused on research. And once more, we want to acknowledge and applaud the efforts of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information in particular, that made it necessary to place in our institutions the post of research officers. And we keep saying that because, as Dr. McLean is fully aware, and Mr. President, allow me to say this, the journey has started, but it is not yet complete. And therefore, we are very focused, and our partnership and our relationship today is simply a continued effort. The vision continues, the work continues, and on behalf of the TCJ, we wish for you a successful conference, and our presence here will ensure that it is successful. Have a pleasant and great conference.
Colleagues, I notice how sparing you have been with your applause. There's no tax on it. Please. See the importance of this collaboration? Because in order to solve the problems, research is very, very important. Let's hear it again for one of our past president and the acting dean of the Teachers Colleges of Jamaica. We now invite a name that has become a real household name in the teaching fraternity, and it's just sending ripples all over. I'd like to welcome Mr. Ryan Parks, Chief Business Banking, Jamaica National Bank. Please make him feel welcome, and they are one of our sponsors for this event and many other events to come.
Thank you. Chairperson, Dr. Charmaine Monteith, Dr. Garth Anderson, President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, our keynote speaker, Dr. Lee Dunn, Mr. Byron Farquharson, Secretary General of the JTA, Dr. Grace McLean, Acting Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, President-elect, Mr. Owen Speed, Mrs. Georgia War Richards, immediate past president, Mr. Howard Isaacs, acting dean of the Teachers Colleges of Jamaica, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen, pleasant morning. Jane Bank is particularly pleased to be associated with the JTA and this conference in particular. The development of our country's education system is something which the Jamaica National Group takes very seriously. And for more than a decade, the development of our teachers, who are the architects of our educational institutions, have been a major focus of the programs we designed and delivered to the sector, particularly in our rural communities. Through the Centers of Excellence and iLead programs, many teachers have benefited from lessons in leadership and coaching, as well as capacity building, particularly in the teaching and learning of mathematics and the improvement of literacy among students. Teachers and our educational leaders have been our main focus because we recognize that our teachers need to be fed, because if they are not, it will affect the outcome of your students. As Dr. Neela Connors writes in her book, if you don't feed teachers, they will eat the students. In other words, teachers, similar to persons in other professions, you need to benefit from continuous coaching and professional development to keep your skills sharp, so that you're always on top of your game and prepared to deliver your best to your students. Therefore, we are pleased to be here today to support the efforts of the JTA as you meet to discuss serious matters pertaining to the development of your profession and to strengthen your service to our country. The theme of this year's conference, Gender and the Teaching Profession, Implications for Teaching and Learning, is one which is current and needs serious focus, given the emerging debate about the feminization of education and the value of men in our classrooms. Data from the Statistical Institute of Jamaica indicate that the ratio of female to male teachers in our classrooms has improved marginally at the early childhood and primary levels. However, it has been decreasing in secondary schools. Overall, the gap remains very wide, with the system employing nearly 19,000 female teachers in 2016 compared to only 5,000 male teachers. This represents an increasing gap, which has grown some 4.4 percentage points since 2017, or 8 percentage points using 2012 as the base year. As the debate rages on about the relationship between this widening gap and the outcomes of our male students, we believe that the subject of gender in teaching is a matter which needs to be keenly explored. I'm therefore looking forward to the keynote address and discussions you will have in the various sessions on this theme, and to perhaps participate as an observer in a few of these sessions myself. However, as your professional needs are addressed today, we want to fully understand that we are cognizant that your financial needs are also important. We are aware that we are aware that you need to be confident about the returns of your service to your country so that you can perform at your best. And we are aware that our teachers and other public servants are earning the daily struggle you experience and the gymnastics that you perform to get the most from your salaries. Therefore, under our recently signed Memorandum of Understanding with the JTA, you can benefit from a variety of specially crafted packaged financial products, which includes loans at special rates, credit cards, savings products, and financial programs to empower you with the knowledge and provide you with an opportunity to achieve wealth. Educators, our values are mutual. Jane Bank wholeheartedly shares in your development and believes in your power to influence the success of our country via our products. Therefore, we are here to support you and to assist in creating the right initiatives which will allow you to deliver your best. It is my hope you will continue to partner with us. I am confident that together we can achieve success. And I want to finally use this opportunity to congratulate the JTA on this important initiative, and I wish everyone a stimulating and productive conference.
I didn't have to ask for any extra applause because money, oh. Colleagues, wonder if the teachers of Jamaica realize that the JTA is a very powerful brand. As a communication specialist and a marketer, I can tell you that successful brands attract people who want to collaborate with us, and we are not short of that. Let us applaud ourselves. We are doing something right. We'll not take our sponsors for granted, and we thank them for wanting to be on board with us. And we say thank you again to Mr. Ryan Parks, Chief Business Banking at Jamaica National Bank. Our student is here from Flanker Primary and Junior High. She's here with her teacher, and she has her microphone. She's going to come right at the front. Hope you'll be able to see her, but stay right at the front. Okay. And please show her some love.
Morning, everyone. The Bus Ride by Sharon Neal. One stop, Sankey. Easy on the gas. Mandeville, Pen, Spanish Town bypass. Kingston. Mommy, step up. Uno move up in the bus. Make the nice lady pass. No problem, auntie. Pull up your foot. Move your bag, miss. And free up the car seat. Sit down, daddy. See a scandal bag here. Hold it in your lap. And mine you go see them drop. No, the lady don't want no sky juice, youth. We are cut road now, so you better go on out. Pull out, Sankey. Mash it and pull out. What a wicked money. He could even give we a blind. But he now go catch we when we start to fly. Your turn now, Sankey. Bun tie up on the high. Me a pain, Spanish town, downtown, ay, ay, ay.
And I'm sure that item was probably entered in the national JCDC. What did she get? She win a medal? Okay, congratulations to her. What's her name? May we have her name, please? What's the student's name? Shanae Johnson, and the teacher's Shanae Johnson? Shanna Johnson, and the teacher's name is? Jackson, sorry, Shanna. Teacher's name is? Carrie Ann Alexander. Please, let's hear it for both of them. And the next voice you will hear is the voice of the gentleman, our president, who is the reason for us being here today, Dr. Garth Anderson. Let's hear it for our president.
Our Master of Ceremonies, Dr. Monteith, Minister Green, Faith Temple Assemblies of God, our keynote speaker, Dr. Dunn, President-elect, Mr. Owen Speed, immediate past President, Mrs. Georgia War Richards, our Permanent Secretary, Dr. Grace McLean, our own Secretary General, Mr. Byron Farquharson, Acting Dean of the Teachers Colleges of Jamaica, Mr. Howard Isaacs, Mr. Parks from JN, Dr. Chin, other members of staff of the JTA, participants, exhibitors, members of the media, good morning. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you all and to bring remarks at Education 2019 in collaboration with the Teachers Colleges of Jamaica under the theme Gender and the Teaching Profession, Implications for Teaching and Learning. Please permit me to join the Acting Dean of the Teachers Colleges of Jamaica in celebrating the fact that a significant number of the presentations today will be done by members of the faculty. And that is very, very important. And I know it's a conference, but when you have the permanent secretary with you, you have to make use of it. And I want to appeal to the permanent secretary that the $2 million we negotiated per college to support research, that it is time now that we have the colleges receiving that fund. I think we are demonstrating that we are serious about research and how we use that to inform our practice. Education universally acknowledged to benefit individuals and promote national development. Educating males and females produces similar results, increasing their earnings, and expands future opportunities and choices for both boys and girls. The Dakar Framework for Action, emanating out of the 2000 Education for All Conference, advocates that education is not only a fundamental human right, but it is a requisite to meet the demands of the 21st century. Globally, the debate over women in teaching and the feminization of the teaching profession is ongoing. In a global overview, UNESCO in 2010 provided data on the percentage of males and females in the primary and secondary schools in 2007. In Latin America and the Caribbean, 78% females and 22% males in primary schools, while at the secondary level, 60% females and 40% males. North America, Western Europe, and Central Asia also showed large disparity with females dominating the teaching system. To take the case closer home, the said UNESCO report indicated that in Jamaica, in 2007, 89% females and 11% males made up the teaching core at the primary level, while at the secondary level, 69% females and 31% males. It should be noted that much of the discussion around gender in education tend to revolve around performance between and among different groups of males and female students in their classrooms. Despite the stated importance of education, not much attention has been given to gender issues among teachers and the implications for teaching and learning. If you ask me, we tend to shy away from the discussion. It is my hope that this conference will allow us to frankly debate these issues with the view of gaining greater insights and influence policies and curricular changes, implementation, and access in teacher education relating to gender equality and equity among members of the teaching profession. Some of these issues we must contend with are: is it a fact that the teaching profession is overly feminized? And if so, why? And what are the implications for teaching and learning? Does the poor salaries paid to teachers across the world relative to other professions has anything to do with the feminization of teaching? Yes. Why there tend to be greater number of female teachers at the primary level of the education system, and what are the implications? Who makes better teachers in our schools, male or female? Should there be remuneration differences according to gender and subject specialization? Are there differences in the grasp of subject matters according to gender? Are there differences with employment and promotions in our school systems based on gender? Yes. What about gender violence and harassment among teachers? The interpretation of these issues, in my view, directly influences teaching and learning, and consequently must be seen as part of the composite whole when we think about the efficiency of our classrooms and indeed schools in creating learners for the global community. Our hope is that we can engage in debate around these issues. We will come to an understanding of our gender identical roles, but at the same time recognize the mutual responsibilities we have in providing holistic education for all our students. Finally, I must use this opportunity to recognize the organizers of the conference, and you heard about them, the team from the JTA and from Teachers Colleges of Jamaica, our presenters and exhibitors. Your presence and efforts have made this conference a success to this point, and I'm sure it will be a success when we come to the end on Thursday. I therefore wish for a very successful conference and hope that we will engage in useful discussions. Thank you.
Colleagues, you remember what I said to you about we're not charging any tax on the applause. Applaud your president better than that. And he really gave a thought-provoking presentation. So you heard those questions? Yeah. Lots of questions to be answered at this conference. And that's what makes this conference even more interesting. Without further ado, and that's a nice segue into inviting Dr. Margaret Chin to come now and share with us about the overview of the conference program. Please make her feel welcome.
Thank you, Master of Ceremonies, Dr. Charmaine Goodman-Teeth, Minister Robert Green from Faith Temple Assemblies of God, our keynote speaker, Dr. Leith Dunn, Senior Lecturer and Head of the Institute of Gender and Development Studies at the University of the West Indies, Dr. Garth Anderson, our President, Mr. Owen Speed, our President-elect, Mrs. Georgia War Richards, our immediate past President, Dr. Grace McLean, Permanent Secretary Acting in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, Mr. Baron Farquharson, our Secretary General, Mr. Howard Isaacs, Acting Dean of the Teachers Colleges of Jamaica, Mr. Ryan Parks, Chief Business Banking, Jamaica National, Mrs. Cadian Booth Matthews, who I understand isn't here, but we will acknowledge her in her absence, Mr. Combach from the Caribbean Examination Council, and other presenters here, our exhibitors, participants, other members of the JTA staff, and members of the media. Good morning to you all. It is my pleasure to provide you with an overview of the conference that will be held over the next 3 days. One of the targets of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals is to eliminate gender disparities in education and ensure equal access to all levels of the education system by the year 2030. However, gender equity and equality in education requires not only that girls and boys, women and men have an equal chance to access to and participate in education, but also that there are quality, equitable learning opportunities and outcomes. In striving for equity in education for all and to monitor progress on gender equality in education, a new framework is required in the teaching profession. This conference therefore seeks to bring together education practitioners, pre-service teachers, academics, students, community leaders, researchers, and policymakers to identify invisibilities and inequalities in education through gendered lens. Engaging with and expanding upon contemporary debates about educational inequalities, especially within the teaching profession, this conference will also explore different ways in which issues with gender equalities operate within and shape the educational environments and institutions. One of the primary aims of this conference is to move beyond the discussions that we will have over the next 3 days and move towards a collectively creative call for action. And this will address the systemic inequalities in education at the institutional and national levels. The outcomes of this conference will also seek to support the strategic objectives of the Jamaica Vision 2030. By helping to secure teaching and learning opportunities that will optimize access, equity, and relevance throughout the education system. And I know our president had alluded to some questions. And so the focus over the next 3 days will be on issues surrounding gender and leadership, leadership styles, employment of males in the teaching profession, the need for gender parity, perception of men in the early childhood sector. So we have planned 3 days of wonderful research-driven topics that I hope you'll be able to interact, have your questions ready. Don't be afraid to push the envelope and ask all the questions you need to ask. I want to thank e-learning for donating 3 tablets to be given away to you. Later on, the representative from e-learning will be coming to tell you how you can win and walk away with one of those tablets. 3 lucky persons will be able to get tablets before we leave here on Thursday. So I wish for you a productive 3 days. This conference was designed with you in mind. We're taking the focus a little bit away from students to highlight what has been happening to us within the profession in terms of gender issues. So I thank you again, and I look forward to your support. Thank you.
All right, another round of applause for Dr. Chin and the Programs Committee. Okay, colleagues, you have been waiting patiently. And we have an expert here with us, a Jamaican sociologist and senior lecturer, head of the UWI's Institute of Gender and Development Studies, IGDS MONA, since 2006, leading program of teaching, research, and outreach. She's a graduate of the University of the West Indies with a Bachelor of Arts with honors, a Master of Science in Sociology, and the London School of Economics and Political Science, a PhD in Sociology and Economics. Her research publications, guest lectures, and conference presentations locally and internationally address gender issues in education, as well as gender as a cross-cutting issue in sexual and reproductive health, HIV and AIDS, climate change and disaster risk management, leadership and governance, trade and economic development, tourism, migration, human trafficking, and child labor. She has served at the UE MONA Gender's focal point since 2012. She supported development of the UWI gender policy and assists faculties and departments to mainstream gender perspectives to support implementation of the national policy for gender equality. This was in 2011. Her public service includes membership on 4 Commonwealth Observer Group missions for elections in different countries, such as Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Rwanda, and Malawi. She has also served on boards and policy committees. She has previously worked with national, regional, and international development agencies, including UNDP, UNFPA, that's the United Nations Population Fund, Christian Aid UK, and the Caribbean Conference of Churches. Ladies and gentlemen, she's married to Professor Hopton Dunn of the UWI and has 2 adult children. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Dr. Leith Dunn, Senior Lecturer, Head of the Institute for Gender and Development Studies at UWI MONA. And just an item of news just in, not breaking news, but a blue Honda CRV 2499JA, your window is down. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You've been sitting for a while, so I'm going to ask you to stand and stretch so you can listen to me. Jamaica moves. Yes. Thank you very much. I first of all want to acknowledge the persons who have been acknowledged on the head table and in the audience, and in the interest of time, move into my presentation with your agreement. I want to first of all thank God for bringing me to this day. We have just celebrated Easter and the resurrection of Christ. I want to thank our minister this morning for having reminded us that we have a purpose-driven life. Yes. The discussion this morning also looks at stereotypes. Mention was made of how our minister looked, right? So part of what we're doing today is looking at stereotypes that we have of our children, persons we see around us, and how that impacts teaching and learning. So we start by looking at so here are some things I wanted to talk about. We've been talking about gender but many of us don't understand the difference between sex and gender. We want to talk about what are the commitments to gender equality in education, why gender is important in teaching and learning, what are the gender gaps in students and teachers, and I want to thank all the presenters before me who made reference and made my job a lot easier today. But also to challenge, what can the JTA do to help to close the gap for national development? And as we have the Ministry of Education represented here and the Acting Permanent Secretary, what are the policy opportunities for us to have a gender policy as we move forward? So here are some main points. We need to recognize that education is a public good for national and human development, and that quality education begins with the outcomes, the end result in mind. What is the current profile of our Jamaican graduates? Is teaching and training aligned to produce graduates for future labor market needs? And as we noted earlier, the need to support the UN Sustainable Development Goals and Vision 2030 Jamaica. But we need to remember that education must be learner-centered, and the teacher needs to understand the student's mindset, their identity, their needs and values, and learning orientations. So our learners cannot be understood and effectively taught without developing an understanding of gender and other differences. So we cannot teach our children, our students, as if they're all the same. We need to review our curriculum and practice, make it more gender sensitive and consistent with Jamaica's policy commitments to gender equality. And I remind us about that later on. So here's the bottom line. I want us to have a gender policy and action plan for education to ensure we have more inclusive, equitable, and sustainable development for all. And we have made commitments. We need to make sure that that is achieved. So what is gender? We talk about gender as a socially constructed roles and relations between men and women, which can change over time across cultures and so on, across class and religion. But it is different from sex, which is a biological category. So we tend to have male and female, but we also know that some people are not male or female. They're born with both. And the doctor makes a decision at after the birth as to which sex should be assigned. And that also creates challenges for us in the classroom, which we tend to want to avoid, but they're very real. And Dr. Goodman-Teeth said, I don't need to go there today. That's for another discussion. Now, the roles and relations and the culture, ethnicity, and class are things that we have to consider as we move forward. So we end up with the idea that women should be caregivers and men should be family providers and protectors. So why does gender matter? Why does gender matter? Our gender identity is promoted through education to ensure that women and men, girls and boys have equal access to learning opportunities, fair treatment in the learning process, equitable outcomes, and capacity for advancement in all spheres of life. Education is a basic human right. Gender equality is key to fulfill those human rights. And gender inequalities are manifested in several aspects of the education sector. So we heard about, is there differential access? Is there differential opportunity? We see gaps in retention and success. These are things which we need to address. So what are some of the human rights commitments? And I put this as I'm preparing you for taking on the baton and running with it, for the research that has to be done, the policy work and the evidence and so on that has to be done to change the gender landscape in our country. We have the UN Declaration for Human Rights, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. We have the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the Sustainable Development Goals, as was previously mentioned, quality education, gender equality, but also reduced inequalities. So wherever those disparities exist, we need to ensure we eliminate them using education. But we also have the gift of the National Policy for Gender Equality, which our Parliament approved in 2011. We have the Child Care and Protection Act. We have Vision 2030 Jamaica. And we have a National Education Strategic Plan, which exists until 2020, and we can, in fact, infuse gender in the next one. So what are some of these stereotypes? As we look at the cartoons, I know some of us are visual learners. We have different kinds of learners. We see a little boy, and the first image says, boys invent things. And then girls use things that boys invent. Boys fix things. Girls need things fixed. Yes? Boys can eat. Girls can cook. And many of these messages are taught in our homes and schools. But gender roles are in fact changing. So we have nursing. Nursing has been a traditionally female-dominated occupation, and something happened in the education system to say girls should be nurses. And now we know that boys and more males are into nursing. The head of our nursing school at the UWI is in fact a man. We see women in science and technology. We see men earning a lot of money through being chefs, although we don't want to encourage food and nutrition for boys in schools. Yes? So we need to rethink a lot of these things. And we see male teachers. The issue of male teachers in early childhood is something that we hear about when we think of the Daddy Daycare. Anybody remembers that movie? Yes. Daddy Daycare, men taking charge of their children. And we have women in non-traditional fields like driving. We also see changing gender roles at the home. So some women are going out to work and the dads are staying home to look after the kids. Yes? So why is gender important in teaching and learning? Now, we have some numbers there. We have early childhood, primary, secondary, technical, vocational, post-secondary, TVET and lifelong learning and libraries, as well as tertiary. And gender cuts across all of them. So if we haven't yet integrated gender into all of these levels, where there will be a deficit and a gap. We have specialty colleges like the Edna Manley College for the visual and performing arts, the Caribbean Maritime University, G.C. Foster, we have the Teachers College, and I must hail my colleagues from Shortwood Teachers College, where I served on the board, research teams, but also from Moneague, where we teach a course on gender. Yes. We also need to recognize that in the area of special needs and in-service training, we also have educators. So, what are some of the diverse elements of our education system? We have a public versus private education. We have public and private education institutions. Do our gender policies, when we develop them for education, apply to both? Or is it that the private sector will feel that it doesn't have to? We have specialty education. Special needs institutions like Lister Mayor Gilby, Salvation Army School for the Blind, and others. I'm just saying that we need to integrate gender in all of these. So we want to look at a snapshot of education in Jamaica. So I selected where we're coming from, where we are, and where we need to get to. First of all, we look at enrollment in education institutions, and I must thank the Statistical Institute, the Planning Institute, for having great statistics. As a country, we need to recognize and applaud that, but I'm challenging you as teachers today to use the data, translate it, help us to shape our dialogue and discussion. So we have 1.1 Jamaicans enrolled between 3 and 24 years, 18% infants, primary 33%, secondary 29.6%, post-secondary 9.1%, and tertiary we have 10%. Now the challenge is, if we can integrate gender perspectives in the education system, how can we maximize the return on investment? How can we have more students at the tertiary level who are going to be doing the creativity, the innovation to support national, regional, international development. So in early childhood, we note an enrollment of 134,434 students in 431 institutions. At primary level, that's grades 1 to 6 and children aged 6 to 11, student enrollment was 243,036, and there we see the disparity of girls and boys, slightly more boys, the completion rates, slightly more girls, as our PS and others mentioned, but we have 88.3% teachers at the primary level who are females. What if we had more males at the early childhood and the primary level to begin to shape the views that teachers can in fact be males? So we look at the secondary schools. An enrollment of 216,952, 83.9% females, 79.7% males, attendance rates more or less or slightly more girls, and we're doing some work on child labor, which says that boys are more likely to be involved in child labor than girls. So we need to see how we can ensure that boys do in fact attend school more. So when we look at the teachers now, 12,834 in 197 public schools, we see 71.7% females to 28.9% males. So the issues that our president spoke about, how can we encourage more males in the classroom, is very relevant. At the tertiary level, we have 76,015, 28%, males in terms of enrollment, 19%, and females, 37%. So we want to have more males there. We need to look at what we're offering at the tertiary level to see whether or not we can diversify. And I must say that the curriculum is changing in all of our institutions to be more responsive to what the market needs and also encourage males. But if they're not participating and achieving at the secondary level, it means that you're still going to have that deficit. So we have a lot of work to do. The next thing is to look at the teachers by sex. Again, the Economic and Social Survey of Jamaica, the latest one, says that for both sexes at early childhood, we have 70 males and 1,073 females at primary, 1,149 primary school males in primary school, and 8,685 females at the secondary, 3,723 and 9,111. And the Jamaica Teachers Association, it says, has over 20,000 teachers. Does that include all of them, or is it only in the public sector? But I want us to look also at special education by sex. Student enrollment, 4,188. Males, 2,736 to 1,452 females. It says that the sex ratio is 65.3% in favor of males. So what is it that accounts for that? And we know that the estimated population of our citizens with special needs is 10% or more. Dr. Floyd Morris, who now has his PhD at the tertiary level, yes, speaks to the fact that we underrepresented in terms of what we know about disabilities, and I challenge everyone to actually look at that. I use this opportunity to congratulate Dr. Charmaine Good-Monteith, who has produced this book, Inclusion of Students with Special Needs in Regular Classrooms. So you know that's a whole module and a whole curriculum and program that we can build on as we move forward to ensure there's inclusive education. We next look at the importance of language, what we say and how we communicate as teachers, and how this impacts on a learner's identity, but also career choices. Yes? So we need to be more careful and mindful about what we say to our students and how that will impact them. And there is almost a hidden language that is gendered. Think about it. What are the things we assign to the boys to do, or what do we say to them vis-a-vis the girls? What are the expectations that we have of them in terms of how we communicate with them? Who does what in the classroom in terms of the language that we use for them? I'm just saying we need to be careful and look at our language and communication in terms of shaping those gender identities and challenging the gender stereotypes. And saying that we need to use more inclusive language. Words that are not going to harm, they're going to discipline, but they won't harm. And tell a child that you can't do this. We need to encourage that creativity and innovation and self-confidence as we move forward. And you know, the boys and the girls tend to respond in different ways to those verbal cues and communication. I also want us to look at a quote from Joan McDonald from a study done, just published in the Gender and Education Journal, quality study in the UK and Germany, and she says, to shift the thinking about professions in a gendered way, we need to examine how they are linguistically performed and the professional identity that is constructed. Examining language can be the key to rethinking these occupations and more skilled who can work within them. De-stereotyping who we think can perform the role is of key importance, as we need more qualified teachers in the UK, which she was talking about. We need to stop thinking about occupations in gendered ways in order to recruit more of the other genders into such roles. And finally, we need more male teachers, not because men are bringing something different to the role as government and recruitment initiatives may suggest, but because we need more teachers, and pupils need teachers that are representative of society. So my question is, do we agree with Joanne McDowell, and where is the evidence that we are going to produce to challenge or support that? So we heard that the teaching profession is gendered. If you look around the room, I think it's confirmed. We have said, how can we recruit more teachers? Is it more pay for the males? I'm not sure that's the solution. Does the sex of the teacher matter in student participation, student performance, education outcomes? Does it matter in terms of discipline in the classroom? Yes. Right? Now, I had the pleasure yesterday of participating in Clifford Brown's birthday party. My friend Donna Parchment Brown. Her husband teaches at the St. George's College, and I was moved as I saw male students coming to thank him for mentoring them, for supporting them, renegotiating when they were suspended, but also making such a difference in their lives. And I think males do need some support and guidance as we move ahead. Women, we heard also, are very powerful influencers. I can think of some of my early childhood teachers. My primary school, St. George's, Mrs. Enid Holding, for example. Anybody here from St. George's? Girls' school? Oh, long, different generation. At St. Hugh's High, we had many teachers who told us what we could become, no barriers. So as we look forward to the future, I'm saying that if we can unleash the potential of our students, support their differential needs, we can help to fill gaps and save a lot of lives and support national development. So I look at the ICT sector, for example, which is one in which globally there's a gap. So there's a whole range of occupations that, in fact, women can do if we encourage them in schools. So we have computer programming, animation, which is really taking off quite a bit. We have the cultural and creative industries, yes, which is getting a lot of support. Web development, social media, and all of those things. I'm saying that we can equip our girls to feel confident about STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So let us not stereotype and say, oh, girls are not good at this or boys can only do that. Let us enable all of them to do their best that they can. So teaching skills, we need to be valuing and promoting gender sensitivity as we move ahead. We also need to be resetting and cautiously ensuring that we enable and empower each student that we come and we're trying to influence. We also need to ensure that we are valuing equality, and we make the difference between equality and equity, yes? So I reflect on Odette Parry, 1996. She was talking about, it's one of the books that we have in Gender Issues in Education. She was talking about subject choice and performance in CXCs. There was evidence of gender bias in student choice of subjects, and teachers often influence that, as well as parents. There was evidence that some teachers hold stereotypical notions of male and female students' ability and interest in certain subjects. And then with respect to the performance in CXC examinations, boys do well in some subjects, girls do well in others, and the performance is fairly even in some subjects. So my question to you is Parry's analysis still relevant today when we look at CSEC and CAPE subjects? We will hear about that later, right? So I want us to look at some of the biases that we bring that can destroy potential and impact negatively the teaching and learning environment. So we have gender biases and discriminatory thinking, activities and interventions and action that discriminate against one sex or another in terms of how we engage them in projects and so on. And we need to avoid those biases. We need to also eliminate the biases in the languages I mentioned, but also to ensure that we treat our students, and I'm not saying just children because we have older students, to ensure that they have equal access to learning opportunities and benefit from quality education, empowering them to achieve their full potential, but giving special treatment as needed. I mentioned the STEM subjects, right? Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And we need to ensure that we use the opportunities, such as Girls in ICT Day, which is in April, to target some of these issues. At St. Hugh's High School, our past students have done 2 national conferences to empower girls and have invited other schools to join. We have Girls and Boys Days in some schools. We can lose those opportunities to address gender issues. So anybody recognizes this image here? Hidden figures. Black women who supported NASA. Yes? And for those of you who have not seen it, I encourage you to. But it underscores the importance of non-discrimination, not assuming that females cannot do science and technology. We look also next at access to schools, attendance, and dropout rates. Now, the way in which we construct gender identity for boys and girls means that the boys are more at risk of certain things and the girls are more at risk of others. It means that they're dropping out, usually by 3rd form, and we were having a little birthday party yesterday for my husband that I had to leave. We were talking about differentials. So we have the Women's Center of Jamaica Foundation, for example, which provides a second chance because the girls drop out at the 3rd form or less than that, sometimes even before they go to high school. Yes? We have a policy for the reintegration of girls in schools. And for those who do not know, I encourage you to learn more about the Women's Center of Jamaica Foundation and use it as an opportunity to give girls a second chance. They're not pregnant just because they're bad girls. There's lots of reasons, sexual abuse, rape, and other factors that make them end up having a child or having been pregnant before they're ready to do so. So we need to ensure that we support them and continue to build on what the Women's Center of Jamaica Foundation has done for the last 41 years. They also include parenting education, and part of that is gendered. I'm coming to the end, don't worry. We need to also engage our parents and our family to re-socialize our students. We cannot do it alone as teachers. We need to engage them to ensure that we have a different kind of gender equality outcome as we move forward. So we have another image here of teachers' expectations, and just reinforcing that you have a very powerful role to play as you shape students' lives, and expect each of them to be excellent. Don't think of what boys can or cannot do, or what girls can or cannot do. Excellence is important for all of us if we're to achieve Vision 2030 Jamaica. So we're looking at the Jamaica Teachers Association president as we move forward, and president-elect, and we're talking about inclusive education, unite and serve. So we have this lovely document, the National Policy for Gender Equality, which I'm saying we can use to integrate gender in our education policies, the curriculum, the teaching strategies, in recruitment and training, but also the selection of leaders. It is a strategy and tool to eliminate gender stereotyping in occupations, but we can use it to guide the development of the gender policy in education. Please use it as you do the research and use the grants, which are going to be multiplied by 10, and the action plans that are going to be there, because we have a lot of work to do. So I'm asking you to consider different types of socialization, and in the schools you can make a difference. You're shaping identity. Yes, we need to look at the kind of student-teacher interaction to ensure it is also always wholesome, but also that it empowers our students. Look at our school practices. I'm still concerned that there's physical discipline in some places, and the boys, we are told, are punished more harshly than the girls. Yes, we need to look at all of those things. I also see an opportunity in the National Education Strategic Plan, 2011 to 2020, which means it's coming to an end. And it says the strategic objectives are gender citizenship, student behavior and student inclusion, special education and inclusive educational partnerships, and student welfare are approached in an integrated manner. It also says, within this panorama, the ministry must consider the issue of gender in education. How does the system ensure equal opportunities that will enable learners of both sexes to achieve the best of their abilities? So I did a quick scan, and there were 7 references to gender. And I'm saying that there's an opportunity to really look at, in moving forward and developing the new strategic plan, to look at the root causes to ensure they are addressed, to target standards and accountability that are gender sensitive. And therefore, we can use this as either the policy or the action plan. I don't know which you will use. So in conclusion, I just want to say that there are a lot of resources that are available to mainstream gender in education. There's one here on higher education. Professor Elsa Leo Riney has done a book for the Commonwealth Secretariat on mainstreaming gender in education. Hyacinth Evans, Gender and Achievement in Secondary Education in Jamaica, inside Jamaican schools as well, and Revisiting the Tertiary Education Policy, which is a publication edited by Rima Holding and Olivine Burke. At our institute, we are delivering the only bachelor's in gender and development studies. And I encourage those of you who have not done it to actually sign up, do modules or what have you. We also have in the audience some of our graduates. I see Ms. Brown, Marika Brown, who is here from the Planning Institute. We have Clover Tobin, who is doing her research, postgraduate research on primary, gender and primary. But we also have PhD students, master's and PhD students. I encourage all of you to please see your profession as a learning profession, embrace research opportunities, and publish. You will, in fact, have a market for these, and it can help to enrich the education landscape and make it more equitable. So there are some references I have, but I just want to say thank you very much, and God bless.
Keep the applause going.
Thanks.
Colleagues, I was just saying to myself before Dr. Dunn was finished that if I hadn't studied anything, this is an area, having listened to her, that I would go and do research in. And I hope your antenna really went up. Let me see, I want to just get a feel for the audience segmentation right here. Let me see the hands of our principals in the house. All principals, raise your hands. Teachers. Guidance counselors. Any other grouping? Past presidents of the JTA. Lecturers. Any other grouping? Work experience teachers? All right, so we get a feel for the parents. Early childhood practitioners. Parents. All of us, or most of us. I'd like to applaud Dr. Dunn again, because this is a lot of research, and I personally would love to have a copy of the presentation to read through, because many of us had not really looked at the different areas and the numbers. So this data is very important, and we know the media, you're here, and you're going to be carrying this information and sharing so that others can benefit from this very rich presentation. And we could not have asked a better person to deliver the keynote address. I now invite the following persons. Do you have any? Well, we are allowing about 3 questions. Are you burning? Any questions that you would like to ask Dr. Dunn? Or she answered all of them? I see a person at the back, that hand at the back from the media. Oh, not in relation to this. So we don't have any questions. I'd like to invite, Toddy, what did I do in my paper? Oh, Christine, is she here? Okay, so I'm going to invite, for the photo opportunity, putting on my PR hat now. I think you need to stand at the front. Dr. Dunn, please step down. And Jermaine Williams, a member of the Professional Advancement and Teacher Welfare Committee, will make a presentation to Dr. Dunn. Please keep the applause going, colleagues. And then we are asking Onyx Boyne to be on standby for the next presentation.
Dr. Leith Dunn, thank you for being here today. Thank you for enlightening us on the theme, Gender and the Teaching Profession, Implications for Teaching and Learning. As educators, we're reminded of some of the stereotypes that we create in the classroom. So we are also reminded of research that has been done on the topic, and as educators promise that to consideration shared today to make our classrooms more gender-friendly for a better Jamaica, a better world. It's my pleasure of the Jamaica Teachers Association to present to you this token of appreciation for your presentation here today.
I'd like to thank Jermaine. I know he loves these things, you know. Applaud him again. And now invite Onyx Boyne, Mrs. Boyne, to make a presentation. She's the chairman of the primary committee, right? Onyx? To make a presentation to Minister Robert Green. Please stand at the front. Dr. Chin, where is the... Jermaine, where is the item? All right. As soon as he gets it, the presentation will be done. I want you to listen keenly. Yes, yes, okay. Okay, come. Yes.
Minister Robert Green, on behalf of the Jamaica Teachers Association, I would like to thank you for coming this morning. You have inspired us, and I'm happy that you are a male this morning. Yes. Right. So I hope that even as we go throughout this conference, we'll think about our purpose and fulfill it. Thank you for coming.
All right, I'd like to thank Onyx and thanks Minister Green. And I'm sure every time we say Minister Green, people are thinking of Mr. Floyd Green. But, okay, the president just corrected me. This is a minister with a portfolio. Thank you. Responsibility. All right, colleagues, what a wonderful opening ceremony it has been, and we are almost at the end. I would just like to acknowledge the presence of the following exhibitors, and if I've left out any names, I will call the names later, and we are asking e-learning to be on standby as well. And persons who have not yet registered for the sessions, the concurrent sessions, immediately before you go to lunch, you need to register for the sessions so we can determine which room to send you to. The JTA Cooperative Credit Union, our own credit union, let's hear it for them. And they have a big house outside there. Jamaica National Bank, they're outside there, big house too. The Jamaica Publishing House Limited, our own publishing house, wholly owned subsidiary of the JTA. Employment and Career Services, Heart Trust NTA, I think they're outside right there at the door. E-Learning Jamaica, and they have kindly decided to give us 3 tablets, and you will hear some more from the representative shortly before we go off for lunch. Walden University, I'm sure they are coming with more goodies. They are not here yet. Financial Services Commission, let's hear it for them as well. And if I've left out anyone, then you will hear some more, you will hear later on. Colleagues, as we wrap up, before I give the other announcement, these were my thoughts that I wrote down as questions. Until I find that paper, let me read this one. T-shirts. Now, let me apologize first, colleagues. If you notice, you don't have your usual colorful conference program magazine, and we are apologizing. We had a little hitch, but you should have them in your hands by tomorrow, tomorrow the latest. But you do have the program for the first day, don't you? Yes. Right, so as I said before, we do sincerely apologize. Now, you have been hearing about JTA/Jamaica moves, and many of you are excited. Some of you would have gotten the information. I'm not sure if everybody did, but I know teachers, some of you come with 3 suitcases like myself. So you have everything. You have the house and including the kitchen sink. So I'm sure you have your tights and you have all the other names that you call them. And so on the final day, you're going to, maybe you might have to wear some of the tights under your jeans until it's time for Jamaica moves. But their t-shirts, the t-shirts have been sponsored by Tip Friendly Society. They are being done by the Ministry of Health, so you will be getting your t-shirts tomorrow afternoon or very early Thursday morning. And we shall be moving, all those with bad knees and back, but we shall be moving. And so we look forward to that session. And of course, the Minister of Health is going to be here, I understand. to say a few words to you before he participates, and we cannot allow him to outdo us, so we are going to be moving. And I'm sure we will be going viral and global and all kind of thing there now. All right. Now, colleagues, we ask you to be punctual. Can you realize that this morning we were off to a late start? And we cannot afford to start late because you would kill the idea of us ending at 3:30 sharp each day. So you know that it is in your hand to come early so we can end early, okay? And the president wants to go to the beach to have some Jamaica moves over there as well. The IR committee, one of my committees that I supervise, and the chairman signaling to me at the back, Mrs. Andrea Brian Hughes, that we staged this, exhibition at the office, and we have taken it here because we wanted to be aware. And the inclusion and inclusive practices, buzzwords, they're not new, but they are buzzwords even more so now as people try to protect people's human rights and we make sure we engage persons. And so for the Global Action Week 2019, the theme for Global Action Week is making the right to include equitable, quality, free public education a reality. And so our committee has an exhibition that will be up for the duration of the conference. And please take note of the date, because you can ask your children. You will get some ideas when you go outside. You can get some ideas for your schools so that you can do posters, creative writing, etc., etc. The theme for Global Action Week is April 24 to May 1. And this activity is sponsored and it is endorsed by Education International and so on, and United Nations and UNESCO and those persons. And so, I have an apology to give to my PE because I don't want him to fire me before he comes to office. And so, I would like to invite our President-elect to come and move. I did that. The vote of thanks. And Mr. Dixon, you can see him working very hard. Somebody lost their big coffee mug. What? That's not it? Okay, Mr. Dixon. And then after our vote of thanks is moved by our president-elect, the representative from e-learning will come and tell you what you need to do to be able to qualify for one of those 3 tablets. Mr. Speed, please make him feel very welcome. Sorry.
Yes, thanks. Thank you, Madam Moderator. Members of the head table, distinguished past presidents, all invited guests, keynote speaker, the persons there, exhibitors, members of the media. Good afternoon, my colleagues and friends. First of all, we have to thank God Almighty for allowing us the opportunity to be here. We really need to thank God for health, strength, wisdom, and the ability to serve. Give him a big round of applause for me. Because many would have liked to be here, and they are not here. I'd like to thank President Dr. Garth Anderson for this insightful theme. It is a provocative one, and it is one that is going to spark many, many debates. And for a very long time after today, we'll be having those debates. I want to thank Dr. Grace McLean in absentia. She took the time out to be here. And we would have liked to have the minister, the interim minister, here, because it's been long in coming. And if it is even for him to come and say 3 words to the ladies, I love you, or you are beautiful, and then turn to the men and say, how are you? Maybe. Because we're talking about gender and the stereotypes and so on. The keynote speaker, Dr. Dunn, thanks for reminding us that gender equality is a basic human right and that we must use education to eliminate gender inequality, and that we must rethink the notion that boys fix things, and girls need things to be fixed. We could say that about the ladies too. Reverend Robert Green, you did a fantastic job, and I've seen many photos of what they say, Jesus Christ. But I don't think that any of them look more like Jesus Christ than you. So thanks for coming out, and thanks for reminding us that we must live on purpose, and thanks for reminding us that purpose determines function, and without a vision the people perish. You also reminded us that poverty is a state of mind. You said that quite a lot of things there, powerful words, and we thank you very much for coming out and being with us this morning. Just want to thank the planners, organizers, admin staff, volunteers, the moderators, and indeed the presenters who accepted to come out and to be a part of this very important event. The exhibitors, the sponsors, partners. Especially I'd like to thank the Jamaica National Group and Mr. Parks. Mr. Parks, you reminded us that if you don't feed teachers, what happened? They will eat the students. I don't know if that is fit for airplay. Media, turn off the mic. Because maybe you could add the parents too, and ministry would eat everybody else. So turn off the mic, media people. Members, for the sacrifice that you have made, you have dipped into your own pockets and you have come up good, because I know that you are very interested in professional development, your very own professional development, and nobody can take that away from all of us. Mr. Cumberbatch, very interesting that you are here, and I would like very much to hear these statistics coming out. Thank you one and all, and have a blessed, a wonderful, a productive, and a stimulating education conference.
May I invite the one representative from e-learning to come, and then just a reminder while they make their way, persons with receipts and proof of payment, please find some time to speak with visit the JTA Secretariat, which is upstairs. Thank you. E-learning. Thank
you. Good morning, everybody. Wonderful. My apologies. Good afternoon. I am Kimona Gordon, Communications Manager here at eLearning Jamaica Company Limited. And we have 3 tablets to give away for the duration of this conference. Everybody needs one. The first tablet, ladies and gentlemen, you will need to attend our presentation tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Our presenter will ask a question from the presentation at the end. Now that question will be posted to our Facebook page. Now all the details will be at the presentation, so no need to worry about that one, okay? We'll post a question to our Facebook page, and you will need to respond on our Facebook page using the hashtags in this order. The first one, JTA Conference 2019. Hashtag, thank you very much. Hashtag JTA Conference 2019. The second one is hashtag ELJam giveaway. And the third is hashtag eLearning Jam. Now that is for the presentation tomorrow. For the overall conference, we'll be giving away 2 tablets, as you see here. Now we're going to ask you to visit our booth. We've also uploaded a artwork, or creative rather, to our Instagram page. Now this is where the trick lies. You have to have an Instagram account. Yes, we're all teachers. We have to learn to use the technology, right? Good. You have to have an Instagram account. You must be following eLearning. Now our handle is at eLearning Jam. So you can do that now, ladies and gentlemen. Our handle is at eLearning Jam. Now we want you to do this. Either you come to our booth or from the presentation, you must make a 1-minute video telling us something you either learned from the presentation or from our booth. A 1-minute video, all right? It must be from the presentation, e-learning's presentation, or from our booth, okay? You will post that video to your Instagram account, and you must tag eLearning Jamaica, which is at eLearning Jam. And you must use the hashtags that I gave to you earlier. That's the only way we'll be able to track the likes, because the video with the most likes as of Thursday 1 o'clock will win one of these tablets and a little extra. Yes, it's a Samsung, right? So the video with the most likes will get a tablet, and the second most likes will get a tablet as well. But the first place winner will get a tablet and something else. You never know what that something else is going to be. Ladies and gentlemen, please visit our Instagram account at eLearning Jam. We've posted the ad there. You can, look at the ad for the rules. Also, we're here. Feel free. Come and visit us. Ask us questions. We can help you to create your Instagram account to participate in this video. Okay, we have about 6 persons, representatives from the organization, who are here to give you that assistance. Thank you very much.
Applaud her. At one point when she was giving the criteria, I thought I was going to win, but I can't manage. So, so you have one person out of it. I have an Instagram account, but I can't bother to make the video. But some more persons will get the opportunity. Jamaica National Bank is asking you before you go for lunch to sign up. They have a basket for giveaway, and I'm sure all the other exhibitors will tell us when they want us to make an announcement. Colleagues, this is now the end of the opening ceremony, and so we have another plenary coming up. So we're asking the following persons to get themselves ready. Mr. Stephen Carr, Director Human and Community Development from PIOJ. Mrs. Marika Brown-Bailey. Mrs. Shereen Williams-Coulthurst. Please make yourselves ready. And can we just applaud all of us one more time? Thank you, colleagues. And thanks for being such a great and gracious audience. Thank you. All right. I'm asking the platform party. I'm sure they are going to be making their way down while the persons for the next session will make their way up. Shireen, are you here? Okay, she's coming up. Please make them feel welcome.
Working for one? No problem. I think that you were here before. I can already say everything I have to say. Put a bag in. That's what I already said my presentation. No, I'm just put them in the Get them out there. That's Marisa? Yeah.
Monica. You can have a seat.
Good morning, colleagues. It's good afternoon, rather, colleagues. We are ready for our first plenary session. And so at this time, I'd like to say good morning again to you all. And we are here at the Education Conference 2019 under the theme, Gender and the Teaching Profession, Implications for Teaching and Learning. It is indeed an honor today to introduce to you our two speakers. They are Mr. Stephen Kerr and Mrs. Mariko Brown-Bailey, and they'll be presenting on the topic Towards World-Class Education and Training, dissecting the role and impact of gender in education and training. Mr. Stephen Kerr is a PhD candidate in the School of Education at the University of the West Indies, Mona. His last 28 years have been spent in the field of education at the secondary and tertiary levels of the system and at the Planning Institute of Jamaica. He is the director of the Human and Community Development Unit of the Social Policy, Planning and Research Division. His responsibilities include labor market analysis, research papers for the Labor Market Information Newsletter, and analysis and monitoring of the education and training sectors. He served also as the technical secretary for both education and the Training and Workforce Development Task Force, playing an instrumental role in the development of the Government of Jamaica's Vision 2030 National Development Plan. He currently sits on the boards of the MIND, Exed Community College, and Sam Sharp Teachers College Board. Please give a hand to Mr. Stephen Kerr. Our other presenter is Mrs. Mariko Brown-Bailey. Mrs. Brown-Bailey is the gender specialist at the Planning Institute of Jamaica. Her responsibilities include providing advice on the formulation of gender-sensitive policies in the context of the cultural realities, supporting the integration of gendered perspectives in all aspects of the work of the Planning Institute, and providing advice on the formulation of gender-sensitive policies in the context of the cultural realities. She also supports the development of gendered capacity-building mechanisms that support mainstreaming gender into policy planning and program development process. Mrs. Brown-Bailey currently holds a Master's of Science degree in Gender and Development Studies and a Bachelor of Arts degree in History and Archaeology. Before embarking on a profession in gender development, Mrs. Brown-Bailey was involved in community development initiatives through her work at the Jamaica Social Investment Fund. She was the Senior Social Development Officer on the World Bank-funded Inner City Basic Services Project. At the Jamaica Social Investment Fund, she was responsible for implementing social programs for addressing the human and social needs of persons in vulnerable communities. Mrs. Brown-Bailey has a passion for seeing individuals, and more specifically women, reach their full potential, and through her work in the public sector, is committed to seeing that Jamaica becomes the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. It is my pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to you Our two speakers, Mrs. Marika Brown-Bailey and Mr. Stephen Kerr, whom I will repeat will be presenting on Towards World-Class Education and Training, Dissecting the Role and Impact of Gender in Education and Training. Please give them a round of applause. Mrs. Brown.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. And on behalf of the PIOJ, we want to extend our gratitude to the Jamaica Teachers Association for inviting us to speak at this particular conference. The presentation that we will be doing is twofold. So basically, myself and Stephen will be speaking on the particular topic, but we will be giving two perspectives. So what I will be doing is taking us through the policy perspectives as it relates to gender and the nexus between gender and education. And Stephen, Mr. Carr, will then go into some practical examples, and he will be making a case for our boys. We have been speaking quite a bit earlier about the extent to which our boys have been marginalized or are experiencing marginalization in our education sector. So we will be going through that a little bit. Mr. Carr will also be giving us some examples and some data for us to see what can be done, what is happening, and then we will speak to some of the recommendations as to how we move forward. So as indicated, the presentation will be looking at gender mainstreaming. What is it? How is gender mainstreaming important within the context of education? How is it that us as teachers, as you as teachers, the bearers of the education system, how is it that this process of gender mainstream is important to your work, and how it is that from mainstreaming gender into education, we're able now to reap the benefits, we're able to see gender equity and gender equality. As indicated, I will give a policy perspective. I think Dr. Dunn quite eloquently alluded to quite a number of the commitments that we have made internationally, but we have also made some commitments to ourselves locally as it relates to gender. So I will be looking specifically at three, but more deeply at two policy perspectives that are important to our society, and that is the Vision 2030 National Development Plan and the National Policy for Gender Equality, which was passed by Parliament in 2011. And I want us to also look at the nexus between gender and education. So let me not spend too much time on the overview and just get right into the meat of the matter. So when we look at gender in education, there are some perspectives that comes out, some things that come to mind. And we have to realize that gender intersects with the structure and the institutional arrangements of education and training. So what I'm basically saying is that what we have been speaking about this morning, we have seen gender coming out. We have seen it come out in teaching. We have seen gender issues coming out in the pedagogy, in the curriculum development. So it intersects within the institutions that we have. And I would not want us to say it is anyone's fault, because as Dr. Dunn said earlier, gender is a learned behavior, and it is manifested through how we are socialized. So sometimes we're doing something and we don't even recognize that we're doing it because it is ingrained. It is how we are socialized to think. So that is, our socialization is manifested in our institutions, in how we work together, in the structures that are there. So we have to recognize that when we're thinking about our institutions, gender plays a critical role. We also look at gender and its role in academic development, academic achievement, attendance, and in enrollment. And we were given some data by Dr. Dunn, and of course Stephen will continue to show us some interesting data coming out of our enrollment, coming out of academic achievement of our boys and our girls. And when it comes down to this, we have to recognize that our education system, it reflects, it reproduces, and it does perpetuate gender ideologies. Can we not say that? Yes, it does. So what is gender mainstreaming, and how is it important in how things are manifested? How is it important in gender equality and gender equity? And when we speak to the issue of gender mainstreaming, we basically look at how the strategies that we develop, how they integrate gender perspectives in all aspects of an institution's policies and our plans of actions. So Dr. Dunn earlier said that one of the recommendations she wants us to make, she wants us to implement, is to have policies and plans of actions that are representative and reflective of gendered issues. And that is one of the ways in which gender mainstreaming is carried out in our work. If we look at our policies, if we look at how we integrate our programs, do we have a particular gender lens? Do we, at the point of implementation and at the point of development, look at some of the gendered issues that can come out of a particular policy or a particular plan that we have? That is what we consider gender mainstreaming. So it's making sure that a gendered perspective is brought to bear on every particular area of focus that we have. So if we're developing a particular curriculum, we have to step back for a little bit and think how this particular curriculum will impact the boys, the girls, the students that I teach. What will be the differential impact for each sex? So that is what we're talking about when we say it is important within this context of gender equality and gender equity in education to have a perspective on gender. Gender has to be mainstreamed throughout the process. And when we speak to the issue of gender mainstreaming, there are three particular frameworks that come to mind, but I will focus on two. And the first framework is what we call Agenda 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals. And we're all signatories, or rather than signatories, we have a national commitment to ensure that these goals are achieved. And the goals that have a particular focus for us are goals 4, that speak to quality education, goal 5, that speaks to gender equality, and goal 10, that speaks to reduced inequalities. And these three goals of the SDGs have particular targets that are gender sensitive and that speak to education. So that is the broad framework from which we are looking. That is a broad policy framework from which we are working. But apart from that global framework, we have 2 gender mainstreaming strategies that are critical for our work within government. And that is the National Policy for Gender Equality, which was approved in Parliament in 2011, and the Gender Sector Plan of the Vision 2030 National Development Plan. And I'm sure we are aware of the Vision 2030, the slogan, Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. And I recall one of our prime ministers says, to retire and die. So that is the framework under which we have to operate. The Vision 2030 National Development Plan, and the overarching plan has various sector plans, and the sector that we're interested in currently is that which pertains to gender. So the Gender Sector Plan, before I get to the Gender Sector Plan, I want to put within the context of Vision 2030 where the issue of gender lies. And it lies in Goal 2. So we have four goals, and it lies in Goal 2. And that goal says the Jamaica society is secure, cohesive, and just. And under Goal 2, it also lies in a national outcome. And national outcome 6 relates to gender, and that outcome speaks to effective governance. And within those particular outcomes, we have what we call national strategies or sector strategies. So these strategies are how we drill down to ensure that we're achieving and that we're able to achieve the goal and that we're able to see the outcome. And the sector strategy that pertains to gender is to have a society where there's a transformation of the prevailing gendered ideologies. So we know that there are ideologies based on our socialization, and that particular strategy wants us to transform those ideologies. So what it is doing is asking us to transform how we think. And that is critical when you're thinking and when you're looking at gender equality and gender equity. It comes from a place of intellectual and mind transformation. So the gender sector plan speaks to, the gender sector plan actually is a framework for Jamaica's achievement of gender equality. The primary goal of that particular plan is to see a society that is free of sex and other forms of discriminations in all spheres of society. So whether it is in our education society, if it's in our politics, if it's in our religion, it is to see a society that is free from all forms of discrimination. It wants us to have, or it wants all males and females at all stages to enjoy full human rights and develop their full potential as productive citizens. So we can recall from the previous presentation, our keynote speaker, Dr. Dunn, indicated that gender equality is akin to human rights. And human rights, within the ambit of human rights, is gender equality and gender equity. It also acknowledges that gender is a cross-cutting issue. And because it is cross-cutting, we will see it in how we do our developmental activities. So we come back to the ideology of gender mainstreaming, cross-cutting across all sectors. The National Policy for Gender Equality, what it does, it outlines the implementation of the vision. So we have the overarching vision through the gender sector plan, and the national policy now speaks to how is it that we can actually achieve those visions. So it communicates the strategies and the tools that we need for achieving gender equality. It is integrated, it is multi-sectoral, and it brings together a coordinated approach to achieving gender equality. So multi-sectoral and integrated means that what it requires from us is a joined-up government approach, a joined-up all kind of approach to achieving gender equality. So we have to work together. So even though within the education sector we recognize that there's a nexus between gender and education, and that there's those two are intertwined. But we understand that the education sector alone cannot fix the issues that we have. So we have to, of course, look at the other sectors in society. What are the other prevailing ideologies and what are the other levels of influence? So we know that the parents, it is important for us to get the parents involved. We know it is also important for us to probably get a Ministry of Health involved. So we have to think of the different coordinated approaches that has to be taken into place, has to be considered when we're looking at gender equality. And that is what the national policy speaks to. And it critically says that gender equality is integral for achieving equitable growth. So what we see is a convergence between these two particular policies. We see the National Policy for Gender Equality and we see the Gender Sector Plan of Vision 2030, recognizing that these two national policy perspectives have to converge for us to achieve gender equality. So looking at both policies together, we recognize that both speak to particular objectives that have to be achieved for us to achieve gender equality. And then we have to now bring it back to see what are the objectives within education that will be required for us to achieve gender equality. So both policy frameworks speak to reducing all forms of discrimination and promoting gender equality and social justice. They also speak to strengthening our institutional mechanisms that are useful for developing skills and tools for gender mainstreaming. So one of those particular tools that is important is what we call gender focal points. So gender focal points are persons that are situated within their areas of interest and their areas of influence, and they're given particular sets of training. They are ushered through training opportunities and sensitization opportunities, awareness raising opportunities, and they are trained so that they can now begin to affect change in their particular space. So one of the recommendations that we can look at is how is it that we can use responsible centers, you as teachers within your own spaces of influence, train you as gender focal points so that you may be able to affect the change wherever you are located. So that is one of the things that the policy framework speaks to. It also speaks to promoting sustainable behavior change, because critical to gender equality and achieving gender equity is having that behavior change. So how is it that you can affect behavior change in your students? And it also speaks to improving organizations' effectiveness and capacity to influence and implement and monitor what we, right, that is the slide, sorry. It looks at improving the organization's effectiveness and the capacity to implement and monitor gender-responsive plans. So if it is that you see the need or see it fit to implement policies and plans, what is going to be required of you? How is your capacity going to be built for you to be able to effect these changes? So within education and gender and education, the policy framework speaks to now critically assessing the role of school and education in transforming these ideologies, recognizing that there are structural barriers that will continue to reinforce sex segregation in schools. So we have to now look at what is there, recognizing that these are there, and now begin to make the changes. And how is it that we're going to make the change? What are some of the things that we have to do to make the change? Recognizing that there's a nexus between gender and education, and that within the education system there still exists, or there is a creation of a rigid gender regime in schools that impact both sexes. And probably at face value we will say it impacts both sexes negatively, but we may not know, and we cannot know until a critical assessment of the structural barriers are done. We have to also look at your role as teachers in the transmission of gender stereotypes. So am I inadvertently transmitting gender stereotypes within the classroom? Dr. Dunn, earlier she spoke to the hidden language. Sometimes we don't recognize that we're doing it, but because of how we are socialized too, that happens. So we also have to now look at the interactions and the relationships in educational settings between the students and the teachers, and not only between students and teachers, but among the students themselves. What is the level, the gendered interaction between these children, between the students, recognizing that there is an interaction, and from face value, it may not seem as if it is gendered, but if you begin to tear away the pieces, if you begin to peel away the banana, you recognize that there's a gendered interaction. We also have to recognize, and I think Mr. Carr will show us in some of the data that is available, the higher participation of females at the higher levels of the education system. Why is this an issue? Is this an issue? If it is an issue, why is it an issue? The issue of underrepresentation of males in the teaching profession. We have been hearing a lot about that since we have been here. Is it a case of remuneration? Is it a case of attractiveness of the profession? What is causing that level of underrepresentation? Do we actually need more males within the classrooms? So those are some of the things that we have to begin to strip away. And on the participation of our male students at higher levels of the education system, why is that? Is that an education-only problem? Or is it a wider societal problem that will now take into consideration the coordination and the joined-up government approach that has to be taken when we are looking at gender equality and gender equity? So there are a few policy prescriptions and perspectives that I want us to continue to mull around as Mr. Carr takes us through his presentation. And we have to critically examine the processes, the interactions, the treatments, the teaching methods, the choices, the learning outcomes. We have to critically assess them, but assess them in with what we call gendered lenses. So it's putting on you have your spectacles and you cannot see very well, you cannot read very well without your spectacles, but also putting on your gendered spectacles to see what is required within the education system. And what is critical too is to recognize that as a policy, as we're implementing policy prescriptions, as we're looking at policy recommendations, what has to be taken into consideration? The rights and access to education for both sexes at all levels of the school system. Recognizing that it is a right, regardless of where the student is, regardless of the situation that the student find themselves in, there is a right to education for that particular student. And looking at the opportunities for empowerment of both sexes and empowerment for both teachers and students. Economic empowerment speaks volumes, and is it a case where because of this particular profession, I do not feel economically empowered, so that is driving a particular sex away from this particular profession. And looking at the overall experience of schooling and to the extent to which schooling seeks to perpetuate and continue to perpetuate the patriarchal notions that we have of boys and girls in our school system. So as we begin to think of recommendations, we have to look at these recommendations with these particular lenses and begin to ask ourselves these questions. So I now turn over to Mr. Carr, and he's going to take us through some of the issues that we have been seeing and making a particular case for our young men, recognizing that there is a level of marginalization that our young men experience.
I thought that this song was instructive, that they never told us that black is beautiful. I'm of the opinion that the issue when for our boys in our school, nobody convinced them that they're bright. Nobody convinced them that they can make a change. And I think that some of the teachers within our system, in terms of efficacy and in terms of agenda, that we need to be looking at some of these things. So my presentation is speaking from the perspective of what about our boys? So I'm speaking on the behalf of a father of a 9-year-old son who doesn't like to read and who think that school is not sexy. And so how can I ensure, and my role is to give you some advice as to how do we move forward this agenda. So I'm from Montego Bay. I'm born here. I went to Barracks Road Primary. I went to Cornwall College. I went to Sam Sharp Teachers College. I'm from here. So listen to me loud and clear. So let's go to my presentation. So I think that the main purpose of school is about teaching and learning. You're here to teach, you're here to learn. The main purpose is to maximize learners' outcomes. And outcomes don't necessarily mean academic outcomes. We're talking about a child who's able to take advantage of the opportunities in life. And whatever those opportunities are, we have to maximize those learners' opportunities. I want to ensure that there are opportunities for multiple pathways. And there are youngsters who are very good at different things. How does the school cater for that particular development? And I'm talking very, very fast. Curriculum adaptation to cater to the needs of all of these children. So my vision of education in Jamaica is aligned to Vision 2030. It's aligned to the fact that everything is aligned to our Vision 2030, creating a world-class education and training system. We want to produce high-quality education product for all Jamaicans. That is coming out of the Ministry of Education National Strategic Plan. We want to ensure that no child is left behind. And if we're not going to leave any child behind, my case is that the boys must be in front of this line. But that's just my case. So all boys and girls will complete free, equitable, and quality primary and secondary education. That's the vision. And we have a number of strategies that are geared towards meeting this. And the strategies include ensuring that everything is right at early childhood, right through to tertiary, ensuring that kids get on to further education and decent work. We want to ensure that adequate and high-quality education is provided with an interface to work. And so we're pushing for gender equity. But I'm pushing for no child left behind. That's my son. I am putting a case for boys. Are you listening? Okay. So the report tells us that boys, there are all the reports that you can see, that our Jamaica Survey of Living Condition speaks about gender equity. Now, from early childhood to grade 11, an equal number of boys in our system. But what we need to be looking at also is that the NEI is telling us that a number of our schools are ineffective, a number of schools are performing below the ministry standards. If in many of these schools, boys are overrepresented, then clearly the quality of education to boys need to be addressed. So we have a number of centers of excellence in Jamaica, quite a number of schools. In my estimation as a planner, I think there are 166 or 67 secondary schools in Jamaica. And I want to put my head on the block to say that 70 of them are effective. 70 out of the 166. Very effective schools. Centers of excellence. There are no schools in the world that could compare to these quality schools. But there are a number of schools in Jamaica that leave our children behind. And in particular, those schools that have 3 years of secondary education, we need to get rid of those schools. But let's move on. So you look at the grade 4 literacy test. You will see that more girls are mastering this test. If you look at numeracy tests, more girls are mastering numeracy. And if they're mastering numeracy and literacy, clearly they're going to be mastering the GSAT. You look at all the subjects of GSAT. PEP, sorry. But the results we have is for GSAT. So let me tell you what it looks like. The idea is that in every single subject at GSAT, girls are outperforming our boys. You take it further to CSEC. And in CSEC, more girls are entering subjects. More girls are getting better quality passes. You look at ones, you look at twos, there are more girls getting ones and twos. If you look at qualification for tertiary, 45.8% of those who qualify, of the girls who qualify, are girls. 45.8% of the cohort. That 13,000 students made the grade of 5 subjects or more. Of that number, 45% were girls. And so what we're looking at is that more girls than boys will matriculate to tertiary. And so I'm speaking out, what can we do for our boys? And so the case stands to what are we doing? Why do we have this particular scenario? Dr. Dunn will tell you already that the issue of differential socialization. You have heard about tie the effer and loose the bull? That is an essence of how we socialize our kids in Jamaica. How many of our boys are told, run, go play? While the girls are left inside to be sedentary, they're focused. When they get to school, they're reading. They're well adept to the schooling system that we have in Jamaica. And so, those are issues that we need to look at. We're looking at the gender stereotype. The book written by Hyacinth Evans speaks about boys at the mercy of female teachers in our schoolroom. They are more abused, physically assaulted. The blackboard duster reaches them head faster than getting to a girl student. And so, how do we address those issues? That there are lower expectations for boys than for girls. Those are some things we have to look at. The issue of streaming, the issues of excluding our students from certain subjects, societal norms and values, what it is to be male, what it is to be a female, what subjects you choose, how dare you choose home economics as a boy. Those are some issues we have to be looking at. And what it is, how a man should look, how a man should dress, and so forth. So those are issues that we have to address in order to understand the socio-cultural, institutional, and structural issues that are affecting our boys. I bring to you a school that recently won School Challenge quiz. And to be honest with you, there are some questions on this quiz that I had to reach for my pencil. But before I even reached my pencil, these kids had already answered the question. And I was impressed. And I thought that there are some really good schools in Jamaica. But there are also some schools in Jamaica that people laugh about. So somebody gets the fact that GSAT is no longer existing, but he's still stressed. Why is he stressed? Because the school, the perception of the school he's going is that it's not a good school. No matter what. How do you change that perception? I'm currently doing some PhD work. I am trying to create a model for Jamaica. A model that will transform poor performing schools to high performing schools within 3 to 5 years. That's the essence of my model. And so, what are my recommendations to improve the underachievement of boys? There are a number of beautiful things happening. Number of beautiful things happening in our school. You heard about JTC, Jamaica Teaching Council, having an entrepreneurial residential training for boys and their teachers. There's a school right down in St. Anne. It's a specialized school for boys who are gifted at football. And so what we're looking at, how we think of getting specialized schools for boys who are good at soccer, boys who are probably good at dancing. How do we ensure that the schooling system cater for different needs? There are boys' days and girl days in many schools. And some of these schools, the kids use that opportunity not to come to school. How do you ensure that these kids get the most out of these experiences? We have heard about gender-based teaching at places like Polyground Primary. About teachers putting boys in a classroom with a male teacher and all of a sudden light bulbs going off. The boys who never spoke before because the girls would call them stupid. How could you ask a stupid question like that? In a classroom with all boys, these boys were now talking out. They were now getting their questions answered. They were now passing this test that nobody said they could pass. And these experiments are happening all over our schools, high school and primary school. We're recommending a replication of those gender-based teaching. There's multiple pathways. And the Center of Occupational Studies, I don't know how many know about that, COS. COS is bringing TVET programming to schools, to high schools. And kids are now getting qualified with associate degrees in high school or matriculation to tertiary. And so more of our boys, in my estimation out of this best practice, will get ahead of the education system. So let me wrap up. What are the factors, what are the strategies we need to look at? We need to look at support system for teachers and parents. We just send strong academic message. Nobody told us that we're beautiful. I am saying to you, you need to get sure that our boys know that they're bright. Strong academic climate. Everybody can learn, everybody must learn. Higher standards for academic achievement. Competitive learning. Boys are very competitive. You need to base that. Scholarship programs for boys. I know Michael does a similar program. And Dr. Polly Bowes is thinking of a program for boys doing special ed. Introduction of mentorship program and uniform groups. Those are things that we're going to be looking at. How do you get these things ahead? Teaching strategies for gender equitable classrooms. I went to Holy Trinity and I saw good things happening at Holy Trinity. And so I say to you, there is hope. What are my recommendations? JTC licensing regime. We need to look at who's coming into the profession. We need to fast track that particular regime to ensure that we have better quality teachers. Career guidance. Career guidance. I went to Korea, and career guidance was a one-semester activity. Jamaica, it's a one-day activity. How do you ensure that every single teacher is a career guider, guiding our students to career? Every subject teacher recognizing the correlation between what you're doing and a career out there. We need to reclassify the teaching profession. This is just from the heart as a teacher. We need to look at the starting salaries of teachers. Jasper, as the president coming in, think of these things. What is a good starting salary for a teacher? What are the allowances that all teachers must have? What is a livable wage for a teacher? If you do all of those things, more males will come into the profession. All right? We've been looking at things like inflation rate. No longer. What is a livable wage for a teacher in Jamaica? Finally, we need a national agenda towards marketing and branding teaching as a high status profession. I leave with you. Thank you very much.
Let's give our presenters a round of applause again, everyone. And so at this time, the floor is now open, where you can ask Mr. Kerr or Mrs. Brown Bailey any question as it relates to their presentations. We have 2 mics in the aisle right here, so if you're ready to ask a question, just stand behind a mic for me, please. Thank you. No questions? Someone is.
Good afternoon.
Please state your name, your school, and which presenter you're addressing.
Okay, I am Elsa Collier Burton from Arden High, and I'm addressing it to Mr. Carr.
Mr. Carr?
It's not a question per se. You are talking about the different things that affect the way that the boys perform. And one of the things that I think needs to be addressed is pre-trained teachers' notions, their own socialization before they go into classrooms. Because I think that if it's addressed in teachers' colleges, the way that they see gender, the way that they approach gender, what is important in terms of differentiation, it will impact the way that they deliver. Somebody just said thank you. Whatever it is that they're teaching in the classroom and how they interact with boys and girls.
Yes, we have a second question or statement.
Not a question, but a statement. Norton Leverage, Grandspen Primary and Infant School, Parish President, St. Thomas. I recently ended my little studies on gender learning. The boys in my class, I pulled them aside for a couple hours each week, and we did teaching and learning in mathematics. We did not do it the curriculum way, even though we pulled the topics from the curriculum. We interviewed the boys and we asked them how they would want this content and what is it that they would want to see. What do they want to do at school? We followed their instruction and we gave the content to them. I saw improvements, and my colleagues, we saw improvement at the end of the weeks. And the boys were excited. They all wanted this program to continue. But I am so worried for these boys because they did their 3 sitting off the pep. And I am lauding these boys that they have done well and they are doing so great. But I know there's a breaking point coming for them because we just did not do the content the way that society is asking us to do it, the content. And I know that it's not a wrong approach because looking ahead, these boys' future, that's what they are going to be doing. What they are good at, that's what they are going to use to make a living. But is it that I know as a society we are talking about gender learning for quite some time now, but we are still waiting to see that form of adjustments in the way we assess them. Right? And so that is my move for this. Whether it is locally or nationally, when I do record my boys' grade, yes, we twist up things a little. The principal may not be in total agreement with it because we are not doing it the curriculum way. But at the end of the day, is it that learning is taking place? And these boys are actually understanding the content based on their standpoint. But at the end of the day, as I said, the breaking point is coming because I am lauding them that they are doing exceptionally well. But they are not assessed in that way. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Dr. Polly by the mic.
Thank you. Polly Bowes Howell, retired grandmother trustee. Colleagues, I'm sorry to start, and I want to thank you for the presentation and all that we have heard since morning. But I want to tell you the reality where I am right now. Since 2012, the JTA has been engaged in screening, because I'm gone right back to the early childhood. And we screen the children for vision, hearing. We do the Denver Developmental Assessment, number 2, because what we want to do, we are looking at readiness, the children who are going into grade 1. And the part of the screening that I am so hurt about and worried about is the little boys. When they go in with a parent or guardian and they have to do the physical. Last year was worse, and I'm now at Vouch. And we were engaged in including what JT has allowed us to do, to include the 7 basic schools in that area. And listen, ladies, I don't even know if I can turn my back to you. I can take it off? Thanks for your patience. Let me tell you something. Yeah. When the nurses ask them to undress the little boys, all right, Dr. Nicely, when the physical part start, and we always say to the little girls, go wash up. And ladies, you know, from you flash up the water, no picnic in here. No, from you flash up the water, it's all right. You see the little boys? There's nobody to help them to pull back the foreskin. And when the nurse begin, even try, your belly, on you hear the picnic and ball. I'm talking about 4 and 5-year-olds. And sir, Stephen, it take a man to teach. Amen. Ladies, help me. Tears in Dr. Go. It take a man to tell a boy what to do. Because it's not ours. And I'm saying we need more father figures in the lives of these little boys. Ladies, what will happen in first? What will happen to the boy picking them? And results, because more boys have been given letters of referral to take care of that little instrument. Life of the boy. So I am asking each level at early child where we do the screening, the health preparation for grade 1. Some of them go into the classroom at grade 1 not being ready, and them have a problem. You see them around the place. Huh? We need a man. We are looking for more man. And I'm asking you, I am begging you to help me. I have come to this conference because I need more support. Ladies, we are doing it. But if you get more support from the male things. No.
Thank you, Dr. Polly. We have another question in the aisle, Dr. Wilmot.
Good afternoon. Anne-Marie Wilmot from Church Teachers College. Either of the presenters could answer at this question. I have listened, and the move towards achieving gender equality in schools seems to be isolationist in approach, based on what I've heard since the morning, in that each body seemed to be in its own corner, doing its own thing. And I just wondered if there's a central effort to ensure that this move is not guided by eclecticism.
So we're going to take the responses now. Right. So I'm going to respond to the Dr. Wilmot. Right, Dr. Wilmot. You mentioned that it appears that as if we have been isolationists in our approach to achieving gender equality. And I beg to differ a bit on that comment, because the government of Jamaica currently has what we call, through the National Policy for Gender Equality, a gender mainstreaming action plan. And a part of that particular action plan, or actions coming out of that particular process, is that we have what we call gender focal points within ministries, departments, and agencies. And those focal points are responsible to ensure that gender is mainstreamed in their particular area, in their particular ministry, department, or agency, and that there's a collaborative approach for the mainstreaming activities. So through the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sport, the Bureau of Gender Affairs, which is a division within that ministry, is responsible for ensuring that the focal point network maintains that level of collaboration, maintains that level of networking, and that the plans that each focal point is expected to implement within their area of influence is shared, and that the plan has approval at the top level of that particular government, of that particular agency. So there's that approach. It may seem a bit isolationist if you are not aware, but I just want to let us know that there is a process through the national policy to have gender mainstreamed in the public sector and gender mainstreamed in a more collaborative way.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please give our two presenters a round of applause. And I would now like to we can only take two final questions quickly, please. Thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
I'm Marcia Thomas from Sam Sharp Teachers College. My question was similar to the one asked earlier, but just to say, based on your comment, how much are we getting the teachers, colleges involved, and also the teachers on the ground, since we are the ones who mainly interact with our boys in schools?
So As I said, each ministry is expected to have a focal point, and there's a focal point for the Ministry of Education. That process, the focal point process, is expected to trickle down to the tentacles within that ministry that has the ability to influence what is happening on the ground. It may seem at times that due to whatever limitations there are within the particular area, that sometimes the information does not flow as it should, and there's a recognition that that actually happens. There's a recognition by the Bureau that that actually happens. So I know what the Bureau has done is to ensure that at least through their operations that they are in some of the schools implementing some of the programs, but it has to be done in a more structured way coming from the level of the ministry. I know the ministry, I think at this point, is looking at implementing a policy, and they will, through that policy, determine how it is that the information is shared with the teachers so that they can effect change in the classroom, because that is where it is critical. It is within the classroom that it is critical that the change is effective. I also want to, at this point, make mention of the medium-term socio-economic policy framework that we have. The Vision 2030 National Development Plan is implemented through what we call MTFs, medium-term policy frameworks. And these MTFs have what we call thematic working groups. And there is a thematic working group for each sector, and the one for education is very active. The one for education now is chaired by the permanent secretary, and it is through the thematic working groups that issues such as these are fed up and also down. So the operationalization of the thematic working group is critical for getting information to the teachers so that it can be effective in the classroom, effected in the classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you. And the final question.
Good afternoon. The name Beverly Gallimore Vernon, Maxwell Park Primary. Sir, this question is for you. Based upon the data that was presented and the performance of our girls in the GSAT and the various exams, why are we speaking about equality over equity?
I don't understand. I'm not clear. We are aware that in every single Ministry of Education assessment format, the person spoke earlier about changing assessment formats, but in every single assessment format, boys linger or are behind, are underachievers compared to girls across the system. That's a given. What we're talking about in terms of equity is the fact that we need to be looking at how this PEP activity of projects, of kids making presentation. A new form of assessment, I think, is ultimately the way to address the issues of how we assess our boys. And so these boys don't like pencil and paper tests. They don't do well. Every single research I've seen on that show that boys don't do well. Boys don't do well on many testing. They don't do a lot of testing. There are places in the world that test once every 6 years. We test every other year. And at this present rate of how we do assessment in Jamaica, our boys will always linger behind. Always. And so what we need is programs that target how we make the system competitive, how we bring in projects, how we bring in play to help our kids to perform.
Okay, thank you, Mr. I'm sorry.
I didn't understand your question. Come along. I don't understand.
Sir, you'd have to stand by the mic.
Sir, equity and equality.
Right.
Equity is where you provide say we're in a class. I have my boys. I'd want to give my boys much more than I would give my girls because they are not catching up.
Right.
So I'm not trying to make it equal.
Right.
I'm trying to make it equitable,
right,
so that the person who is lacking would get more than the person who is not getting or not meeting the standard which they should reach. So based upon what is presented for the GSAT and the performance of our girls, then I would want to be adding more value to the boys. So I'm not trying to make the boys equal to the girls. I'm trying to provide more. The person that needs more is the person that I would give more. So the equity and the equality, I don't want to make it equal. I want to make it equitable.
Yes, sir. Quickly, please. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, Sashane Hall. The well-learned gentleman spoke earlier, and he tied in licensing with regards to performance and all of that. But I'm currently doing a paper as it relates to licensing. It's my own belief that, and based on readings, that licensing in itself does not push the ability of the teacher to teach or to pass on content. Licensing in itself will not do that. What licensing will do, based on other, give the teaching profession in itself more weighting to say, all right, this is an argument for which one can use to say salary strengthening, getting other benefits from other areas. But in my belief, licensing in itself does not make a teacher able to pass on content. Also, no, you're saying, okay. And no, it's one of the avenues, yes, but by itself it cannot stand. There must be other things to it. Now, I'm also questioning this. If we bring in licensing into the sense, and I have no issue with it, but if you bring it into play, are you not going to, I don't want to use the word marginalize, but are you not going to drive away males from the profession if you do not tie licensing to that portion that speaks to advancement with salaries? Because am I going to strain myself to come into a profession that I cannot feed more than one child? As a male, I'm the breadwinner. I want to take on my role as a male.
I have a different perspective, and this is just this perspective of what I know about licensing. That in licensing, there are different opportunities to regain your license or to renew your license. There's the opportunity for you to do research, and there are groups of people within quality education circles who could do a research on boys, a research on gender achievement. And out of that opportunity of doing a research, there is an opportunity to improve or to renew your license. That's one component. So it's adding to the content. The other component of licensing have to do with the fact that people are running concessions or concurrent sessions right through the year on varying aspects of improving pedagogy, of improving content. And so there will be opportunities for teachers to ensure that in order to ensure that my license is renewed, I would have done 20 hours of this, I would have done 40 hours of that. At the end of it, in my opinion, you would have a better teacher. The licensing regime also, I don't know all about the licensing regime, but what it will do is ensure that a teacher of accounts don't teach maths. So if you don't have a specialization, chances are you will not be able to teach a subject that you're not specialized in. Those are some issues that I have with the teaching system right now that affect the performance of boys. There are many schools in which teachers are not qualified to teach a subject in which they're teaching. Those are some issues that the licensing regime will resolve.
Thank you, Mr. Kerr, and thank you, Mrs. Brown-Bailey. We would now like to invite Mrs. Leslie Thomas to give the vote of thanks. Can you step down for me, please? Thank you. There's no mic up here. Do you want to use this one?
Good afternoon, everyone. I recognize I'm standing you on lunch, so I'll do this quickly. Mrs. Mariko Brown-Bailey, and to Mr. Stephen Carr. We just want to express our gratitude to you for outlining the National Policy for Gender Equality and Gender Sector Plan Vision 2020. And recognizing that in order to achieve this, you need the teachers. You need to start with the teachers. And I want to thank the audience for the questions asked, in particular about how the teachers and at the Teachers College, if they are not being brought into the picture, how we are going to achieve this. So I imagine that is something for you to consider when you go back to your office and knock head with your colleagues. Mr. I admire the passion, and I'm sure you will do, the passion you bring in pushing the agenda for the boys. And we ladies here recognize and understand why we need, because many of us have girls. And so from all of us, we would like to thank you for having come and outlined all that we need to do in order to make it an equitable society for boys as it is for our girls. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon again, colleagues. I see the pace has now been set, and I like the interaction. I like the fact that you are asking probing questions, but now we have to get to the food part, because I know the stomach turning over and it's affecting the brain and concentration, right? So we're going to go for lunch. I would really like if we can come back for 2:15. 2:15, 45 minutes. So have a quick lunch and then we can come back at 2:15. If everything goes well, we can be out of here by 3:45. Sounds like a plan? But we have to keep a tight ship running. Good? So when we come back, when you're finished with lunch, you go straight to your concurrent sessions. And then we come back for our last plenary. So can we stand for grace? Nobody goes through the door. Not a Jackman go through the door. Or Jill woman, according to one of my colleagues. Good. So can we just say grace for health and strength and daily food? We can sing it lustily. Let's go. Auntie Polly, can you lead us, please?
And daily food, we praise thy name, O Lord. We praise thy name, we praise thy name, we praise thy name, O Lord.
Wow.
Boys alone must say amen.